Hi, everyone. I'm Anne-Marie Green.
And I'm Vladimir Gutierrez. Thank you so much for joining us. The survivors of the deadly school shooting in Florida say they're turning their anger into action as they try to prevent another tragedy. Thousands of people rallied in Fort Lauderdale over the weekend demanding tighter gun control laws.
More protests are planned across the country over the next several weeks. 100 students now plan to visit Florida's legislature tomorrow to call for a ban on assault weapons. Adriana Diaz spoke to 4 survivors of the shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School.
They say that tougher gun laws do not decrease gun violence. We call BS!
Never again. That's the rallying cry from student survivors, fueled by the loss of their peers.
If all our government and president can do is send thoughts and prayers, then it's time for victims to be the change that we need to see.
Emma Gonzalez is one of the teens calling on politicians to pass stricter gun laws, along with Delaney Tarr, David Hogg, and Cameron Caskey.
What do you think is the one thing about your generation that can really spark change here?
The fact that we're getting shot. And I hate that it took hitting me right at home for me to get involved with this, but I just have to forgive myself for that and keep moving.
The thing is, as much as I would love to be worrying about prom dresses and college acceptance letters, in my mind, I can't think about anything now except change. All I can think about is those 17 faces.
They're taking their movement nationwide with a march on Washington next month.
How does a march bring change?
Think of all the things that have happened since the first Women's March. We've had the Me Too movement, and along with those women, it's our turn, and it's the grieving students' turn to put an end to this and be heard.
We are going to make ourselves so loud, so brazen, that they won't be able to ignore us in the White House. This is all about gaining a platform so that we can discuss with them, creating common sense gun laws and stricter gun legislation.
We want assault rifles off the market.
Automatic, semi-automatic have no place in civilian society.
Is it a slippery slope? Do we start with AR-15s and then more gun rights are taken away from people?
No, that's the thing.
We have a right to live. At this point, what does it mean to have rights to have guns?
What we're on right now is a slippery slope that we're getting to the bottom of. This needs to be where we stop and we start to stand up.
CBS News correspondent Adriana Diaz is in Parkland, Florida, following her interview with the students. So, Adriana, what did these students have to tell you about why they decided to take action now?
They said they have no choice. There are 17 people whose lives are lost who can't take action. So they're here, they survived. They feel a responsibility, a huge burden for these young people to do something. And they know that they're too young to vote, most of them, but they said, we have a voice, we can be heard. There are schools in this area who are pre-registering some seniors so that they can vote as soon as they're old enough. They said that other adults have tried to bring change, and the change hasn't been big enough. And they said now it's fallen on us, the kids. It seems to be that we're the only ones that can get this done.
You know, Adriana, it's interesting. A lot of people have asked me if the students at that school, if the community is one known for activism. And I've said absolutely not. You know, these were just normal high school kids until this extraordinary, horrific thing happened to them. And that's why they've decided to pick up the reins and take the ball forward.
Yeah, they keep telling us, you know, this apparently, they say Parkland was considered the safest town in Florida last year. They say you would never expect something like this to happen in this town. Some of the students moved in order to go to the school because it was such a good school. They had so many AP classes. And the kids told me, the teenagers told me, you know, we should be worrying about those classes. We should be worrying about prom. We should be worrying about college. But we can't. You know, as you saw in the piece, Delaney, one of the students, said, all I can think about is change. All I can see in my mind are those 17 faces. Now, mind you, they've only known a world with mass shootings. They were in middle school when Sandy Hook happened. And they remember it, and they remember being outraged, and they remember how angry everyone was in the country, but that there wasn't significant change. And one of the students said, you know, at that time, I didn't think there was anything I could do. You know, I was just a kid, but now I'm a little older and I can do something. I can't make that excuse anymore. And the victims in Sandy Hook were so little. They weren't old enough to act like they can now. There wasn't social media like there was. They didn't have this movement. So they feel that they have to take advantage of this. One of the students said, you know, maybe this is a blessing. because it's forcing us to act, and we will not stop. One thing that young people are, millennials are, is relentless. Say what you will about us being self-absorbed, one of the kids said. You know, he said, yeah, I'm self-absorbed, I'm always on my phone, and I'll be on my phone after this interview, but I'm a fighter, and I'm going to fight.
Yeah, and they'll be using their phones and their Twitter and everything else to get the message out. I think that's part of why they've been able to sort of reach out to so many different groups. I know the women's movement, the women's march group has sort of folded themselves into this, but they're still high school students. They're still going to have to go back to high school at some point. What's happening at the school? When will it open again? What's going on?
Well, the school will be closed until at least Wednesday. There's been talk of letting staff in after that. But these students are out of school. They're really sticking together. They've all been camped out at one of the teenagers' homes. That's been their base camp for this activist fight that they are working on. So they're using their time out of school to move their agenda forward. They are planning a march in March, on March 24th. They're also planning to go to the state capitol in Tallahassee. They're loading buses. They're expecting 100 teenagers to go, and they're planning on sleeping over in sleeping bags in one of the civic buildings there, and then go to talk to lawmakers, deliver a petition calling for a ban on assault rifles. So this is what these kids are doing when they're not in school.
Adriana Diaz doing some incredible reporting. Thank you, Adriana.